Sorry, you're not on the list. Kim held the invitation as cold as a knife to her neck in formality. The silver emboss of Fort Kingsley caught the last smear of sun as she slid the cardstock back across the plastic mat. Beyond the gate, brass spilled out of the honor hall like a tide. Snare rolls, polished notes, rehearsed applause. Flags hung in geometric perfection, each corner clipped by hidden wire. The air smelled like polish and old stone. A man in dress blues laughed at something not funny. Somewhere inside, Daniel was already in the light. "I'd like the print time of that roster," I said, keeping my voice even, "and the responsible officer's name." "Please contact the Secretariat after the event," Kim recited, chin angled with the etiquette of turning someone away without leaving fingerprints. The guard to her right pretended to check a scanner that had already decided me non-existent. "I'll take a copy of the page you checked." I didn't move, didn't raise volume. The point was not to win, the point was to mark. "Not authorized for distribution." Another voice, softer, precise, came from the side. The protocol officer stepped in, green service uniform, hair pinned with the kind of care you give to rules. Her eyes lifted to mine for half a second. There was an apology there, faint and fast, the kind that evaporates if anyone breathes on it. Then she pivoted back to the gate. "Next." I let the invitation fall into my palm. Paper has weight when it's the wrong answer. Two cousins swept past with cologne-like afterthoughts and didn't see me. Behind them, my mother and father moved with busy purpose, as if the evening were a hallway they needed to cross before the lights changed. My mother's gaze flicked across my shoulder and away, the way people look through glass cases in museums. My father's jaw set into that familiar line. "We have standards here." I stepped aside, out of the river of ceremony, into the shade of a stone column. The hall's glass doors swallowed uniforms and small talk. A brass cord rose, bright as a promise made to someone else. I turned toward the lot. In the car, the leather held the day's heat. I started the engine for the sake of the recorder's clock, rolled the windows up to turn the world into a pane I could write on. I tapped record and let my voice make anchors. 1700 minus 18, I said. Gate 2, Fort Kingsley. Checkpoint staff. Male guard, brown hair, nameplate unreadable. Protocol. Female, hair secured, green uniform. Refused to provide print time, refused responsible officer's name. Recommendation to contact Secretariat post-event. The dash clock blinked UTC alongside local. I shot it twice, then angled the camera to the sign that read, "Security checkpoint, authorized entry only." Because signs tell juries what people forget. Over the wall, the honor hall's lights pooled warm gold, but the band's snare had sharpened to a metronome. Timing matters. It always has. I lifted my eyes to the reflection in the windshield. A woman sat still enough to pass a stress test, lips a straight rule across a face that belonged to regulations. I pressed the invitation to the center console and flattened it with my hand until the silver crest left a cold imprint in my palm. The outline looked like scar tissue when I lifted it away. The last time we were all at a table, my father had lifted his glass and said, "This house only needs one person to step up to the podium." It had been framed as a joke, and everyone did their part. Daniel smiled the way photographs teach you. My mother touched his sleeve, centered a cufflink as if truth had a place and it was his wrist. I cut my meat and chewed and learned the mouthfeel of quiet. The recorder hummed in the cup holder. I scrolled the note app with my thumb, typed the names as I could reconstruct them from a glance, added a line. Eva, protocol desk. Apologetic eye contact, nonverbal. Not evidence, not exactly, but the human layer matters when the papers are clean. A gust skimmed across the lot and flipped a page of the sky from blue to dusk. People drifted in from the far side, shadowed by the mast of a flag A boy too old to be called a boy sprinted to hold the door for a colonel and missed the handle. He laughed at himself and bowed anyway. Ceremonies teach everyone where to put their hands. I opened the glove box and slid the invitation into a sleeve. A tiny white thread had loosened at the card's edge. Manufacturing flaw. Or a fingernail. I picked it free and watched it float. Everything forgivable looked elegant from a distance. My phone lit with a voicemail icon, my mother's number. I didn't press play. I already knew the shape of it. Claire, don't make this about you. Claire, be kind. Claire, think of the family. She is not unkind. She is loyal to the version of us that wears better on Sunday mornings. A tap on the window startled only the muscle in my jaw. The protocol officer stood there, chin dipped under the brim of her cap. I rolled the glass down halfway. Formalities protect both sides. I can't, she began, and stopped, because she had already told me what she couldn't do back at the desk. Up close, she looked younger than her posture. She set a palm on the window frame, then moved it back as if her hand had trespassed. I know, I said. Her throat worked, one small swallow. Someone updated, last minute. It's not my... She searched for a noun that wouldn't give away a system. I'm sorry. It's a clean sorry, I said. Hold on to it. Her eyes flicked to the recorder, saw the red dot, and she straightened without needing to be asked. Have a good evening, ma'am. Then she walked back toward the gate with the precise stride of a person afraid of leaving footprints. Eva, I wrote. Note, not complicit, adjacent. The brass in the hall swelled. I pictured the LED inside, the tall one that lists rank, name, unit, status, a monument of pixels that doesn't get tired. That list would wash through everyone standing in that light, bless them with font size and certainty. Lists are the closest thing institutions have to prayer. I unlocked my phone and scrolled to Ellery's number. It was stored under ME, but I never needed the label. My thumb found him on muscle memory. He picked up on the first ring. Background silence. An electrical hum like distance being bridged. I was stopped at the gate, I said. Roster says I don't exist. They refused to log the print time. There was a pause long enough to hold a reprimand, but he didn't fill it. When he did speak, the words were laid down like coordinates, exact and sufficient. Write it all down. Don't make a fuss today. Copy, I said. I ended the call and let the quiet flood back. A car door slammed 2 spaces over. A pair of dress shoes clicked, stopped, started again. The recorder kept counting seconds in tiny numbers. I wrote, instructions received, document, no escalation. For a while, I just sat with my hands on the wheel and let the drill of practice take the place of rage. People assume fury is loud. The real kind is a narrowing of pupils, of options, of the distance between an event and what you make of it. I cataloged angles, shadows, faces. I noted the camera on the corner of the gate, its field of view swallowing the approach to the desk. I noted the way the guard reached for the scanner before I reached for my pocket, scripted eagerness. Scripts always have authors. I took 3 slow breaths and let them out on 4s until the need to push against something faded. At the far end of a colonnade, my father's silhouette crossed a spill of light and was gone. I thought of his hand on my shoulder once, years ago, before rank created separate rooms. You've got grit, he'd said. I'd thought it was a blessing. Now I knew it was a sentence. You'll be fine without us. Headlights ghosted the row in front of me as a sedan nosed through, then went dark. The clock ticked toward 1700. Inside, the band cut out on a cue I couldn't hear, and for a breath the hall held a perfect vacuum. Then the applause ignited, timed, generous, indistinguishable. The phone buzzed in my lap. No banner, no sender ID, just a gray preview line in the notification shade like a thread pulled through cloth. I thumbed it open, every part of me already braced for the polite poison of an official note. Blinking blue-black screen. Sat pass 2230, unscheduled. One line is enough to flip the entire record. The apartment had the acoustics of a locker. Bare walls, a humming router, the faint tick of the kitchen clock that never agreed with anything. The terminal's whitelist window pulsed at the edge of expiration, a pale green bar counting down like a fuse. I steadied my hands on the keys and widened the query. Theater. Date. Pass indices. The corridor that mattered. The map layer rendered in slow strokes, desert geometry and false color. Then the log ribbon repainted itself with a single bright scar where there should have been empty sky. 2230. A bird overhead that was never scheduled to be there. I took the screenshot, then ran it again. Same result. I called the digest function and watched the hex spill across the console. #1, #2. Stored both. Exported the file with its audit trail chained to the query parameters and my session fingerprint. No one would call this a memory. It would exist in the language of machines. Immutable, reproducible, boring. Exactly the kind of boring that makes lies sweat. A second window held the safety plan we'd filed back then. The clean version with a satellite pass at 1:45 like a guardian angel set to arrive on cue. I placed the two ribbons side by side and let the mismatch glare. If we had waited for what was written, nothing would have looked like a trap. Someone moved the sky to meet us early. The phone on the counter lit up with a voicemail badge, my mother's number again. I let it play on speaker because it was easier to catalog a voice than an ache. If you go, don't make things difficult for your brother. The message held the softness of a warning disguised as care. I saved it to a folder named SP1. Typed a line beneath it. Familial pressure, non-operative, relevant to optics. Close the window. Don't let it fog the instrument panel. Comlogs next. The internal tool fought me, then yielded the way worn hinges do. I set the filters tight. Sender group, command office, recipients, tactical logistics. Time frame, T-3 hours to launch. The list populated with routine traffic, inventory ticks, weather summaries, 2 status pings that read as if written by committee. I scrolled until a line tagged priority/flagged by an automated rule we never asked for popped into view. The preview showed 3 words, enough to quicken breath. Trust the... I opened it in full. Trust the 2230 window. I'll take the heat. No preamble, no salutation, just the push. Clean and deniable. The sender field resolved to a role account in the Office of Command. The personal behind it masked by an admin alias that hid faces like a well-made uniform. H-Assist lived somewhere under that umbrella. A human, a hand, a habit. I copied the raw headers, logged the message ID, and threw the entire object into an evidence bundle with the SatPass file, letting the checksum land with a quiet, satisfying click. I thought about Lance Tanner. Logistics back then. A steady presence in a storm. The kind of person whose memory arrives with coordinates attached. I drafted a note I wouldn't send yet. Lance, need your recollection of pre-op message timing, especially any off-channel directives that altered insertion prep. Not asking you to burn a bridge, just asking what bridge we were marched across. I left it in drafts and didn't let my finger hover near send. A ping broke the quiet. The router flickered. A new attachment appeared in the Dropbox I'd left open like a trap for conscience. A photo of a memo, angled, poorly lit, stamped with a fading logo I knew too well. AEGIS STRATSYS. The title line read, Pilot Testing Support, Arizona Theater. The body text was gray from faxing upon faxing, But the date Stain held, 2 weeks before the op. The signature block belonged to a manager scheduled for retirement this year. Someone had slipped this toward me through a crack I hadn't known existed. I cropped the image, ran basic enhancement to pull the ink up from the noise, then attached it to a note labeled SP2 with the words, Aegis presence proximate to theater, tie to expedited ethics? Expedited ethics. I turned back to the compliance index and searched for approvals granted in the 90 minutes before launch. The list came back nearly empty. Nothing moves at that hour unless it's designed to. But there it was, a single line. Expedited Advisory Protocol. Approved. Timestamped roughly 60 minutes before the com push. No attached justification file. Only a dead link and a signature by an interim ethics advisor with a name I'd have to chew on later. I pulled the metadata, stored the approval token, and sighed through my teeth. The sequence made an ugly sense. A green light conjured, a window shoved, a field team sent blind. I assembled the package the way I'd want to receive it if it were my job to doubt it. Exhibit A, satellite log, with unscheduled pass red circled by the algorithm that didn't know circles were metaphors. Exhibit B, com log, raw and parsed with header trace. Exhibit C, expedited ethics entry with the missing justification highlighted by its absence. Exhibit D, the AEGIS memo photograph, date marked, location marked. I stacked the hashes, added independent checksums, sealed the archive with a timestamp server that would testify for me later without ever taking an oath. The D8 portal asked the right questions, and none of the wrong ones. Source, scope, potential conflicts, desired outcome. I typed, rectify record, initiate procedural review, prevent recurrence. Under narrative, I kept my voice dry enough to chafe. No adjectives, only verbs and times. It's harder for them to call you hysterical if your sentences look like inventory. The cursor hovered over submit like a blade over fruit. I let the pause sit long enough to count to 5 and think of the 2 bodies that hadn't made it back and the 4 who had, changed in ways paper doesn't hold. Then I lowered the blade. The progress bar slid green from left to right. A case number bloomed. Logs accepted. Case ID, D8-KX-431. The confirmation page asked if I wanted a copy of my own courage. I downloaded it twice, just to make the urge to check dissolve. 2 beats later, the phone vibrated with a tone I only assigned to one person. Not a call, just a short, clipped message through a channel you don't name out loud. Prepare for reinstatement. No comma, no signature. Ellery never wrote more than the mission required. I stood in the middle of the kitchen and let my shoulders drop the width of a breath. Reinstatement was less a door than the right to reach for the handle again. It meant I wasn't a ghost by policy. It didn't mean I wasn't one by habit. The clock on the stove rolled over to a number that felt later than it was. I poured water into a glass and tasted the metal in the tap. On the screen, the case ID settled into the archive pane like a tile on a wall. I opened the draft to Lance, reread the unsent lines, and added a small postscript. Not tonight. Soon. I returned to the console and printed a human-readable summary of the tech bundle, the way you would prepare to teach a stubborn class. Headings simple, diagrams spare, every claim tied to a time. The router coughed once, recovered. I checked the whitelist timer, still a safe margin, and cleared session keys that didn't need to linger. The apartment seemed to widen by an inch, as if the walls had been waiting for a yes. A new email thunked into the inbox I reserve for messages people don't want traced back to them. The subject was nothing. The sender string was a shruggable nonsense. I clicked anyway, because I already knew who I was tonight. We were in the auxiliary lot, the part of Fort Kingsley that looks like the back of a theater. Service doors, silent compressors, cones that never move. Yellow sodium lamps dragged long shadows across the asphalt. A mist rode the air, too fine to be called rain, enough to turn the pages tacky. Eva kept the book cupped in her hands like a wounded bird and glanced toward the corner camera. The lens sat in its dome, patient, swallowing the whole scene in a fisheye that makes truth look smaller. She opened to R, the pages whispering like they knew to keep quiet. There it was, the tab marked R17, and halfway down the column where I should have been, a bleached rectangle of correction fluid, and through it, a single firm stroke of black. The loop of my H in Hart was still visible under the smear, like a fossil pressed into chalk. In the margin, a time had been penciled in, then traced over in pen. 1407. A neat ring circled it.
A second, fainter ring was drawn around the first, the way people do when they're nervous about being precise.
Revision. Last 2 hours. Eva read softly, pointing to the header stamped in blue at the top of the R17 page. Her fingertip trembled once, then steadied. On the outer edge of the sheet, near the hole punch, someone had marked a tiny glyph that wasn't part of any template. AEGIS. Not a word exactly, a shorthand, the kind that lives in offices and travels on nods. It wore the ugliness of being useful. It wore the arrogance of assuming no one outside would see it. "Hold it," I said, and set my phone to macro. The mist made halos around the lamp glare, and I had to angle the book until the ink stopped shining. I shot the stroke, the ridge where the pen had pressed too hard, the small feathering where a hand couldn't keep pressure even. The ring around 1407 with the indentation of the pen tip at the start point. I shot the blue header, the exact font that says "We are official and you are not." I shot the glyph on the edge and the grain of the paper around it, because paper grain is a fingerprint for machines that don't believe in humans. The camera clicked softly in the breathing space between the compressor's cycles. "Verbal orders from the office," Eva said. And when she said office, she didn't mean a room. She meant a category of people who can make ink obey. "I only take notes." Her hair had let go of 2 pins since the checkpoint. Up close, she was younger than the title on her badge. She didn't look at me when she said it. She looked at the book, the way you look at a map when the road is gone. The mist caught on her lashes and beaded there. No tears. Climate. "Who gave you the book tonight?" I asked. "It lives in a locked drawer," she said, which was a good non-answer. The lock jammed a little. I lifted my phone, shot the lock notation on the inside cover. "Who held the key?" She didn't answer. It wasn't a silence meant to hide. It was a silence meant to survive. I took a slow breath, tasted metal and damp. The timestamp in the margin tugged at the email in my pocket. Your name was crossed out at 1407. The way signal and paper sang the same note made something cold and clean move through me. I scrolled to the photo gallery and paired the image of the time ring with the screen capture of the message, not to send, just to see them breathe beside each other. People doubt witnesses. Machines doubt timestamps less. A door thumped somewhere behind the loading dock. The lot took a breath and exhaled a security cart, its headlights sliding low across the asphalt, painting our shins and the spine of the book. Eva closed it to half, reflexively, as if modesty belonged to pages. I tucked the phone closer to the spine and snapped the signature line at the bottom of R17, the duty officer's scrawl, the initial of a second pair of eyes, a stamp half-inked that left a broken circle. On the inside edge, the checkbox for "Approved by Protocol Lead" was empty. Not crossed out, just empty, like someone had walked past a switch they were supposed to flip and told themselves the light would be fine. "The mark on the edge," I said, tipping my chin toward the H assist. "Is that?" She gave a tiny shake. Even that felt like a risk. "I only take notes." Understood. We stood there and listened to the drizzle prick at the page and at our sleeves. Somewhere closer to the parade ground, a radio chirped and told someone else what to do. I took 3 more angles on the slash over my name, then a wide shot that caught the whole spread with Eva's hands, the lamp, the glint of the dome camera in the corner. Context offends detail when detail is accused of lying.
I folded the book gently back to neutral.
"Thank you," I said, and meant it in the way soldiers mean something that gets them home. "I won't put your name in anything that moves." "You don't have to," she said, and surprised both of us. "I wrote it in the margin when it mattered." Which is what good people do in bad systems. They leave breadcrumbs where the foxes don't look. "If anyone asks," I said, "you showed me the public section." She nodded, the smallest debt paid. I stepped back and let the camera dome see that the book was closed. The mist flattened my hair to my forehead. I wiped the screen with the inside of my sleeve, and the sleeve smelled like the cleaner they use in halls that need to impress donors. I leaned against the hood, opened my notes, and drew a circle with 3 points, each labeled with the plainest words I could make myself use. 22:30. Unscheduled SAT pass. Trust the 22:30 window. I'll take the heat. Command office to logistics. Expedited ethics approval minus justification. AEGIS proximity to theater. Then I connected R17, revision last 2 hours, H assist, 1407. The lines met the way rivers meet, reluctantly at first, then with the inevitability of gravity. It made a circle, and in the center of the circle was a hole in the story where my name used to be. You can tell what a system fears by the shapes it erases. Tonight it feared a woman who keeps receipts. I switched to the secure dialer and found Ellery. He answered on the first vibration, the way people do when they've been waiting on your ghosts. "I have R17 and H assist," I said, because that was all the poetry the moment required. "Enough to open internal review. Keep the original photo. Copy," I said. "I've got macro, metadata, margins." "Good," he said, and I could hear the click of a pen on his end. "Don't bring it to the front door. Let it come to you." When the call dropped, the lot felt quieter, although nothing had changed except the position of the cart in the distance and the angle of one lamp's cone. I sent a single encrypted ping to the D8 case file. Supplemental evidence available, protocol R17 page, duty signature, H assist notation, 1407 margin timestamp, originals retained. I didn't attach the images yet. You don't hand the last bullet to the first person to ask. Ava had drifted to the edge of the light. She lifted a hand once, waist high, a gesture you might mistake for straightening a belt if you weren't paying attention. I mirrored it, half wave, half salute, and watched her slip back toward the service door, the book a darker shape against her uniform. A drop of water slid from my hairline past my temple and broke on my cheekbone. It registered as cold, not sentiment. I replayed the memory of the office in her mouth, how the word had weighed more than its syllables. Office as weather. Office as gravity. The H-assist squiggle in the margin was a weather vane. It confessed which way the wind came from. The security cart rolled by, the driver blinking slow like someone trying not to wake a sleeping animal. I looked away from him, down at the circle I'd drawn in my notes, and realized it wasn't a circle anymore. It was a ring. A crown flipped upside down, its points stabbing into the page. In the negative space, I wrote, "Circle of power." Underline once. Underline again. Headlights arced into the lot, smooth and mannered, the way a car moves when its driver has nothing to apologize for. A black sedan slid into the space across from me and idled. It was the kind of black that eats light. The windows were up, the interior a suggestion. I tipped the phone down so the screen wouldn't show on the glass. People who want to be seen make you work less. The passenger side window lowered a precise 2 inches, enough to let a voice out without letting rain in. I didn't step closer.
The voice didn't need volume to find me. It had weight instead. The kind that comes from rooms where microphones don't clip. Tomorrow's list will be different. Just go to Honor Hall. It caught the foyer light and flashed like a warning. The glass steel security gate accepted the barcode with a cheerful beep, as if the system had decided to forgive me without learning my name. I stepped through into the marble air of Honor Hall, the kind that turns footsteps into ceremony. The band had gone quiet, only the HVAC sang. Flags lined the corridor like a corridor of verdicts. I kept my pace measured, my breathing shallow enough to pass for calm. At the registration island, a receptionist smiled the way manuals teach, teeth, no gums. "Welcome." Her fingers moved across the tablet. "Hart, Claire." A pause, a micro-flicker, then, "You're restored in the live roster." The word restored was almost tender. She slid a printed slip toward me. It had my name, my rank, a code that mapped to a seat. I didn't touch it yet. "I'll need the updated print time," I said, "and the operator ID who pushed it."
"We don't typically—" She trailed off because someone in protocol had taught her that not finishing a sentence counts as civility. "I can note your request." A shadow cut across the counter. Eva drifted in from the periphery like a note no one heard the first time. Hair pinned tighter tonight, posture straighter, eyes doing math at high speed. Without looking at me, she set a folder under the edge of the tablet, tidied a cable, lifted her chin toward the corridor as if aligning sightlines to the flag. The receptionist's attention slid to a new arrival. I slid the folder to my side with 2 fingertips, as if I were rearranging my own paperwork. Inside, a glossy photo of the log update screen, timestamp burned into the corner, 16:58:37 UTC. Beneath it, a thin pen line circled an internal note, AEGIS/override R17. My phone still held the sedan's sentence from last night as a bruise on the screen. I matched times in my head, the numbers nested like gears. I let out air I hadn't meant to keep. "Everything okay?" the receptionist asked, back on me. "Perfect," I said. "Could you confirm the LED sync interval?" She blinked. "Every 90 seconds during pre-roll, continuous during ceremony." "Thank you." I palmed the print slip now and let the paper's edge scrape my skin enough to remind me I was here and not just reading my own file from outside the glass. The hall opened into a lobby where the ceiling pretended to be sky and the LED stood like a monolith, a 15-foot ledger in obedient light. Rank, name, unit, status. A litany that turns people into categories and categories into absolution. My eyes glanced off it by habit. I'd spent a year teaching myself not to look for myself where I had been erased. Backstage carried its own weather, a narrow corridor marked protocol and events that smelled of toner and starch, the floor scuffed by the wheels of carts that move ceremony where speeches can't. I drifted toward the edge like a tourist who had lost her group. A filing cabinet sat against the wall, its lock shiny with newness and old fingerprints. The top drawer had a hairline scratch near the latch, the kind you make when a key hesitates before it obeys. I checked the corner mirror, convex, lying helpfully, and watched the reflection of the AV booth where 2 techs conferred in the hush of people who manage volume for a living. He appeared in the mirror before I let myself turn. The assistant from the office, H-assist in the margins glyph. Same tidy suit as men who never sweat, comms earpiece tucked just so. He leaned into the AV booth and used 3 fingers to draw a line in the air. It wasn't a gesture so much as a signature. One tech nodded, tapped a keyboard, the other adjusted the playlist row on the control surface. I lifted my watch into the mirror and pressed the crown to stamp UTC, held it there, then lowered it and stamped again at the end of his gesture. Time stamping a stranger's hands is a particular satisfaction. His face turned a fraction.
Enough for me to catalog the exact confidence that comes from doing unlisted tasks in listed rooms. He didn't see me. Women in dress uniforms are furniture until they're microphones. I let him finish being important. He walked out without looking left or right. People sure of their lanes don't check for cross-traffic. I stepped closer to the cabinet and read the sticker on the side. Invoid verified Q4. Tags don't prove compliance, they prove aspiration. I took a photo of the sticker, then a second of the tiny rip where a previous tag had been pulled fast enough to lose its corner. Peter trails are geological. You can date a landslide by the layers of what people thought they had fixed. The carpet swallowed my footfall as I came back into the main lobby. The LED refreshed. Someone had adjusted font sharpening. The whites bit a little harder. I drifted to the edge of row C, pretended to study the program handbill until the words repeated. A man in metals moved past. A woman in black heels hesitated over a toe. The sound system cleared its throat with a low subharmonic only equipment notices. Above the hum, I heard my name once, twice, the syllables falling like coins into a jar. Ellery passed me as if I were a wall. No nod, no acknowledgement. His shoulder brushed mine lightly, a contact so impersonal it counted as weather. The envelope landed on my seat without the gesture of a hand, white, sealed, weight out of proportion to its size. Wait for LED refresh. Someone had printed across the flap in block letters that discouraged curiosity. He was already gone by the time I turned my head, which is how favors travel in buildings like this, on their own feet. I sat without sitting, half-perched, weighed on the balls of my feet, the envelope under my palm, pulse low like a cat's. Across the aisle, Eva stood with a clipboard and the art of not seeing me. We were each other's alibi by omission. I lifted my phone just enough to capture a slice of the LED, the row of rank. I caught the transition blur as letters morphed, some bureaucratic snake shedding skin. 90 seconds, she had said. I counted in my head, 88, 89. A volunteer with a ribbon pinned to her lapel appeared at my elbow with a smile that could sell a country. "Let me show you to your seat," she said. "I have it," I said, and showed the printed slip. The code read like coordinates, A01-GEN. She studied it, then studied me, and the tiny muscles around her mouth adjusted to a new setting. The receptionist quietly says, "General seating, row A, Ms. Hart." They've identified me right there on the seat. For a second, the floor tilted. Not because of the word general, I knew how rumors gallop, but because of the syntax. The seat had named me before the room did. Systems making promises to systems. She led me down the center aisle, the marble drinking our steps. Row A waited up front like a lowered drawbridge. I set the envelope under the chair, spine aligned with the chair leg, a ritual for control. On stage, the podium's gooseneck mic stared at its own reflection. I glanced to the wings. The AV techs stood ready. H-Assist hovered at a polite distance from the equipment, the way handlers do when they've already handled. I scanned the balcony. My parents had taken seats 2 tiers up and 3 in, the angle of their spines identical. Their heads inclined toward a couple who had turned to ask them something. My mother's hand gripped her clutch like it could hold her in place. My father stared at the flag behind the stage as if it would blink. When his gaze dropped, it skipped over me like a stone skipping water. Contact without acknowledgement. Movement without arrival. The LED in my peripheral vision hiccuped again. A name dissolved, reassembled. Someone in back coughed the way audiences cough when they hit silence wrong. I eased the envelope open with a thumbnail. Inside, a single folded sheet with the weight of consequence. I didn't read it. I let the paper rest under my fingers until they remembered its texture. The way a new order always feels like an old one if you've worn enough of them. The lobby lights lower. MC. There's an addition to the program.
The LED begins to refresh. Welcome, General Claire Hart. The echo hits the dome before I can breathe in. The podium is nearer than it looked from row A. Distance collapses when the room decides you belong.
The carpet swallows my steps. The mic at the gooseneck draws a thin breath, and a pair of white-gloved hands lifts the badge toward me like a sentence being handed down. Metal meets fabric over my heart with a soft, decisive click. I feel the weight, not as glory but as gravity. This is what names do when they finally find their bodies. I steady the sheet of air in front of me. Faces turn into a low-lit sea. The council's lined resolve, the press ring holding its choreography, the rows of uniforms arranged by starch and ambition. Somewhere at the edge of my vision, the LED waits with its calm appetite. Somewhere behind it, machinery hums the note of inevitability. I keep my eyes level. My mouth finds the line I promised myself I would say when the room was forced to listen. Recognition isn't redemption. Facts stay. A ripple moves through the audience the way wind moves a wheat field, surface only. The MC inclines his head as if we have both fulfilled an old contract and steps back. The LED's processor draws power. A fractional flicker skates across its face. Then the characters begin their crisp, mechanical march. General Claire Hart, Strategic Ethics Liaison, active. The font is not triumphant. It is administrative. That is its mercy. It says what it says and leaves no room for argument. People clap because that is what hands do when names appear in sanctioned light. I do not bow. I do not smile. I breathe and let the light pass over me like weather. The next line assembles from pixels, deliberate as a closing door. Colonel Daniel Hart, Operations Liaison, under international review. Protocol irregularities. The hull of the room makes a small, collective sound, the intake you hear when a wave meets rock. A seat in the honor row creaks. Fabric whispers. I don't turn. I don't have to. I can feel the angle of my brother's gaze slide toward the screen and then toward me, trying to decide which surface can be trusted. The ticker at the bottom wakes and begins its crawl. White text on compliant black. Office of Command. Assistant temporarily suspended. It's like listening to a safe admit it was always a door. H-assist, reduced to a status line, moves from rumor to record without my mouth forming a single accusation. Let status speak for you. Let the system read its own indictment. At the back of the hall, someone stands and sits again, defeated by etiquette. A press camera's red tally light flickers to life and then dims. The ring knows this is not their moment yet. The counselor on the aisle leans an inch, as if gravity had shifted under his chair. My parents are stillness itself, 2 tiers up, stunned into a pose that looks like prayer if you don't know our family. Ellery does not look at me. He does not need to. From the wing, his hand lifts a fraction in a movement no etiquette manual records. Permission, without performance. I bend, slide the sealed envelope from beneath my chair and open it with my thumb along the glue seam. Inside, black type on white, as spare as a field order. Initiation of Contracts Audit, AEGIS STRATSYS. Below it, the hearing schedule in plain numerals, the room assignment, the instructions that turn a private ledger into public air. No memo flourishes, no adjectives, just doors named. The LED jumps a beat, a visible heartbeat in diode and glass, then accepts its new line. AEGIS STRATSYS, Contracts Audit Initiated. The word initiated lands with the dry authority of a stamped form. Somewhere, a pen stops scratching. Somewhere, an email drafts itself in a panic. I let my eyes find Daniel's now.
There's no malice left to carry between us. The room has confiscated it.
What's between us is bearer, a ledger, a list, a balance column that stopped pretending to be a family dinner. He doesn't flinch. I don't either. His mouth tightens like a man tasting metal. Mine stays a straight rule across the day. The MC steps forward to herd the ceremony toward its next paragraph, but the air is not done shifting. A few heads angle toward me, hungry for spectacle, the way crowds half hope for an unplanned confession to leak into the microphone. I give them nothing of that kind. The badge is warm against my chest now. The fabric below it has begun to remember the shape. The facts remember too. They always do, if you write them down enough times in the right light. Behind the dais, the LED cycles names that are not mine, titles that kept the room upright before I stepped into it, statuses that comfort the obedient. I hold the envelope steady at my side and let its paper edge bite a crescent into my palm. Pain is an index. It tells you you're still in the scene. From the corner of my eye, I see H-Assist pale. His phone is at his ear, his lips shaping the vowels of a man who has always spoken into privilege and is meeting a dial tone for the first time. 2 protocol officers arrive at his shoulder with smiles that are really policies. They escort him toward a door used for smoke breaks and resets. He goes because he knows better than to fight where cameras can learn your name for the wrong reason. Ellery is motionless now, his face a geography that does not admit weather. I lift the envelope half an inch and lower it, acknowledgement enough between people who only use verbs when necessary. The council chair begins the next encomium, syllables lined in gold leaf, but the audience's attention skims off the edges. The room has already eaten what it came to eat. I let the stanza of praise pass over. When it ebbs, I lean into the mic just enough for the gain to find me. There is nothing left to add. The point was never volume. It was record. The kind that will sit in archives long after anyone here forgets the color of the carpet. A breath. The dome holds the sound the way a hand holds water. In the ring of media at the back, a reporter lifts her notebook without raising her head, eyes narrowing as if she could write the rest of the night by feel. Another camera lights. The red tally blinks, then steadies. The MC thanks the audience for their continued commitment to integrity, a phrase that sticks to the walls like steam. Time resumes its civilian gait. Applause measured. People stand in segments like crops in wind. The LED continues its merciless politeness. Names marching past in 10-second boxes, the way a city names its streets after what it bulldozed. I step back from the podium exactly 1 pace, let the microphone fall out of my shadow and turn toward the wing. The aisle seems longer on the way down. The badge presses into my sternum with every breath. I do not look up to the balcony. I already know what I won't find there. The phone in my pocket buzzes with the vibration that doesn't belong to public systems. It lands against the bone like a coded knock you only get once. Encrypted phone vibrates. Proceed to Anteroom C, off-record statement requested. A reporter whispers, "Was your name really crossed out yesterday?" I'll be brief and off the notebook. The lapel microphone flashes once. The room absorbs my voice like a responsible witness. Anteroom C is smaller than its name implies. 2 chairs, a low table, the faint ozone tang of recently powered gear. The one-way glass holds a dim copy of me and a darker suggestion of a man behind it. Ellery doesn't move. The glass edits him into presence without detail. Outside the door, footsteps arrive and stop, the carpet catching the impatience of anyone who thinks doors are opinions. The public affairs officer nods for sound. Her pen hovers above a page that will later be sanitized into minutes. I keep my eyes on the edge of the glass, where my reflection ends and the building begins. Yesterday my name was scratched off the door. Today you read it out loud. But recognition is not atonement. The file will speak for itself. The words land without ornament. They don't need it. The badge on my chest is no warmer than it was on stage. It doesn't have to be. She clears her throat, soft as a stage direction. One question for the summary. Message to the family? I don't need faith. I need backup, in time. Her pen moves. The room clicks the sentence into the record. Any reporter could turn it into melodrama. Here it sits like a brick. Weight without theater. Somewhere behind the glass, I can hear the ghost of a chair adjust. Ellery is a geography more than a figure. You feel him the way you feel elevation. Anything else you'd like to add off record? She asks, by the book. I think of R17/override, the faint residue on the new invitation, the hand that wrote my erasure in wet black and the hand that wrote it back. I think of the parallel between a signature and a switch thrown in an AV booth. I think of the ledger that learned to say my name because I forced it to learn. No, I say. Off record is where sentiment tries to dress as strategy. I've seen that uniform before. She reaches to unclip the mic. The diode winks a second farewell and goes dark. Silence moves into the space it leaves, and I let it. When she gathers her folder, the page edges whisper a small apology to the air. Thank you, she says, professional and sincere in equal measure. They'll call you for the transcript if you want to approve phrasing. They can keep the phrasing, I say. Just don't move the times. When the door opens, the hallway presents itself like a test. Daniel stands 3 paces down, posture set to neutral, eyes searching for an angle that won't wound either of us. My mother has both hands around her clutch as if it has a pulse. My father keeps his face on the far wall, the old discipline of not interfering disguised as dignity. The smell of wax and wool from Honor Hall drifts in like a habit. I stop an arm's length away. No closer, no farther. I'm not fighting for the podium. I'm just asking for my name back on the file. My voice doesn't rise. It doesn't have to. My mother's mouth opens, then closes around a word that doesn't survive translation. My father blinks and fails to find a rank that fits what I've become. Daniel holds my gaze and, for once, doesn't try to narrate me to myself. He nods, almost imperceptible. It is not forgiveness. It is an acknowledgement of gravity. The hallway returns to its original purpose, a place to pass through. I walk. The carpet gives, then releases. The corridor widens into the lobby we both know too well. The LED is still at work, reading a city of names with machine patience. People stand in small circles like punctuation. My steps find the stone, then the longer rhythm of the staircase. The door breathes me out into air that hasn't learned the evening yet. On the steps, the sky is clean and high, shorn of ceremony. A flag makes the small sound of fabric doing its job. The square is busy and doesn't care. A delivery truck coughs. An officer laughs too loudly at something not wholly funny. A child in a sweater hops from tile to tile and declares a game won by private rules. I let the badge press its shape into me and remember what it is not. Recognition does not equal redemption. Equations keep better than speeches. The phone touches bone, a coded vibration that knows the shortest route to the nervous system. I take it out where the sun can see. Hearing scheduled. AEGIS plus Office of Command Assistant. Date. DD/MM, 10 o'clock. I save it to the case file without annotating my face with a smile. The screen returns my expression unchanged. A meeting is not justice. It is the opportunity for justice to try on its uniform in public. I descend the last 3 steps. The stone passes its cool into my soles. A breeze lifts the edge of my jacket and flattens it again. The world adjusts a fraction to make room for a fact that will not move back. Behind me, the doors exhale another wave of guests, all perfume and congratulations, a current that would carry anyone willing. I'm not. Arrival feels like silence when you've lived at volume. I let it be silence.
The notification chime that belongs to no one official stitches itself into the moment. A new message docks in the D8 channel with the bland confidence of a cleaner. Anonymous email landed in D8. R17 is not enough. Ask about R17B. Parallel book for VIP. A new layer of cover revealed. I tuck the phone away and look up. The flag snaps once, like a camera catching a name in motion. The square keeps going. I step off the last shadow of the building and let the light take me. Not as a spotlight would, but as noon takes anything that earns it. As the hall's lights dimmed, the frauds stood naked before the ledger they once controlled. Badges cooling, phones dead and power receding like a tide that finally met rock. She walked past them steady and immaculate, the system forced to pronounce her name where it had tried to erase it. When betrayal hides behind protocol, truth arms itself with timestamps. The moment they felt safest, paper perfect, stage set, was the instant the trap closed. Justice doesn't race, it calibrates. And when it arrives, it audits everything. And when the dust stopped lying, one fact remained. The higher they stack a throne of lies, the farther they fall. Because truth doesn't knock twice. It kicks the door off its hinges.